Morning, everybody. It's Scott with Football Scoop. I am extremely happy to have Pat Coleman on with us today. Pat is the executive editor of D3Football.com, unquestioned leading source of football information at Division III level. And Pat and his staff do a great job, and I invited Pat to come on with us today just to kind of give us an overview of the bracket. I asked him if he wouldn't mind taking about 10 minutes. You know, it's 32 teams. It's tough to dive into 32 teams, and we can't do that in 10 minutes. But we're going to ask Pat to come back each week throughout the playoffs and give us his insight into what's going on. So, Pat, thank you for coming on, and tell us about the bracket. By the way, guys, D3Football.com has the best bracket available. We'll give you a link to that on the site. All right, Pat.
Well, thanks. And this is one of the greatest things. This is basically the best college football playoff on the planet. There are so many teams. There's 32 teams. Hey, the fact that we even have a playoff is a big deal, right? So,
I agree completely.
There are 25 automatic bids, so that means that there's not a whole lot of at-large opportunities. There's just really 6 at-large teams in the entire bracket. There's one, that other one, for those of you who are doing the math at home, wondering how we get to 32. There's one bid set aside in any Division III sport. There are bids set aside for conferences that don't have automatic bids. So if your conference is too small or too new, you at least have a shot at getting in the playoffs. You pretty much have to go undefeated or 9-1 in football to get that. So it's a great bracket, and this year the NCAA committee just completely threw teams all over the map. Usually we're all siloed, north, south, east, west, with just a little bit of crossover, and now we've got you've got East teams in 3 of the 4 brackets. 9 of our 16 first-round matchups actually matched 2 teams from different regions, so it's going to be a completely different look to the playoffs this year, and I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, Pat, when I looked at it, I feel like I see a lot of games where teams are going to have to travel by plane, and I don't think that's really the norm here.
Yeah, it's not it won't be in the first round too much. The NCAA sprung for one extra flight, which was nice. Usually they would try to get by on the bare minimum, even if that meant 2 conference teams in Southern California or Texas playing each other in the first round, and that's happened a lot over the last 10 years. But this year, they gave us an extra flight in the first round, so we have 2. And I think when we get to the second and especially the third weekend, there are going to be a lot of teams getting in planes to go to those quarterfinal games.
Good stuff. All right,
yeah.
What's the best way to talk about the bracket? You want to start with the Whitewater bracket?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Whitewater, we've got the 2-time defending national champion. They've won 40 consecutive games. You look at people have thought and talked about Larry Karras's record, the head coach of Mount Union, for years and years. He's a guy who has fewer losses than seasons coached, and his winning percentage is up in the 920s or something ridiculous. But Lance Leipold has been there for just 4 years, and he's I don't have it in front of me. I think it's 67-3. It's a ridiculous.
57-3, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got 3
it's
losses.
a ridiculous record that he's had in his 4 years there. This is they're coming off each of them. Whitewater, Mount Union, coming off their 6th consecutive trip to the Stag Bowl, and with a shot to make it the 7th. Each of the top seeds has a pretty easy opponent in the first round. We talk about those automatic qualifiers, and a lot of those are our quote-unquote 8 seeds. The NCAA didn't do seeding this year, or I'm sorry, I'm sure they did seeding, but they didn't tell anybody what it is. In the past, 12 of the last 13 years, they've released the seedings, and this year and a couple years ago they didn't. So there we are. So looking forward at what Whitewater, presuming they take care of business on Saturday in advance, the team they would be facing would be out of a toss-up game, a real good game, in fact. Franklin against Thomas More. Franklin faced Whitewater in the playoffs last year. They actually scheduled up and played them in a regular season game this year, which I thought was a great move by Mike Leonard and the guys there in Franklin. Mike Leonard's a guy who was the offensive coordinator at Hanover. Jim Hilvert, the head coach on the Thomas More side, is a guy who was the defensive coordinator at Mount St. Joseph. Those 2 teams are in the same conference. These guys know each other real well. They're not in the same conference now, but Franklin and Thomas More are just a little over 100 miles apart in Indiana. So it should be a real good matchup. It'd be interesting. Thomas More is going to be starting a freshman quarterback. Luke Magnus took over at the beginning of the second quarter against Mount St. Joe on Saturday, and we'll see what he gets a chance to look like in his first playoff game on Saturday. And then if they win, they have a chance to. They go to Whitewater most likely, so that'll be an interesting baptism by fire. But forever quarterback Johnny West on the other side is his first season as a starter as well.
Nice. You want to move down to the Delaware Valley bracket?
On the Delaware Valley side, Delaware Valley opens with Norwich in the first round. Norwich is the automatic bid out of the ECFC. This is the first time that conference has had an automatic bid. The team that they would be facing next, presuming that they take care of business as always, would be either St. John Fisher or Johns Hopkins. And this is an interesting matchup too. St. John Fisher, basically did not get together to watch the selection show. They had 2 losses. They were 8-2. The last time that a 2-loss team got an at-large bid over a 1-loss team, you have to go back to 2007, and even before that, it was very rare. The committee over the last couple years had really emphasized record far more than strength of schedule. And if you had a 9-1 record, you were going to get a chance. You were going to get every chance, and an 8-2 team basically had no shot. So for St. John Fisher to get in, first of all, is a testament to their strength of schedule. They had really good numbers this year. They didn't perform very well against the 2 teams that they lost to. They lost to Hobart and they lost to Salisbury. Salisbury's been crushing almost everybody this year. So neither of those games were particularly competitive. But I like St. John Fisher's chance in this game. Paul Vosberg's team is, they've had some interesting transition on offense. They had a guy ready to start a quarterback, got hurt early in the season. A kid named Ryan Kramer, who's been a running back for them. His older brother was a quarterback that led St. John Fisher to the national semifinals a couple times. So Kramer comes in, takes over a quarterback. He's, they're not throwing the ball nearly as much, but he's been pretty successful. And on the other side, I don't know what to make of Johns Hopkins. Jim Margraf has been there for a long time. This is the first time that Johns Hopkins has gone 10-0. Their first undefeated, untied season, and the last time they were undefeated at all was in 1944 when they went 1-0-2. I think about those wartime seasons. Was some of them were pretty short, and a lot of teams didn't even field teams. So they play 9 conference games in the Centennial Conference. Their one non-conference game was against Merchant Marine Academy. So I think they're coming in. I think we're a little bit unsure what they're capable of. They've certainly got they've got one of the best quarterbacks in Division III. And they're very precise and quick on offense. I don't know if they've seen the kind of physicality that St. John Fisher might bring to them up front, so it'll be interesting to see how that matchup plays out on Saturday. That's a real big toss-up game.
Yeah, I agree. I know we're not going to spend much time on it, but the top half of that bracket is brutal. St. Thomas and St. Scholastica undefeated, and Illinois Wesleyan playing Monmouth, both 9-1. That's going to be a challenge to come out of that one. All right, jumping up to the Mary Hardin Baylor bracket, moving to Texas. Well,
yeah, I mean it's Texas and West Coast. Yep, it's an interesting mix, and Pete Fredenberg actually they have a pretty decent challenge. They're probably the best challenge of all the top seeds in the first round. Redlands has done some pretty good things this year. They've struggled of late, but they have kept winning their games. They beat North Central out of Illinois early on, the very first week of the season. In fact, that's the reason why Redlands is here. Gave them a nice win against a regionally ranked team, kind of put them over the top in a group of a lot of other one-loss teams. The team that winner would face in the second round is going to be a Texas team, whether it's Trinity University or McMurray. And McMurray, of course, in its last season in Division III, they're moving to Division II. Hal Mummy is taking a team that was 0-10 when he got there. And I know that your listenership, your viewership, your readership is going to know all about this guy, so I won't go into his background. But suffice it to say, yes, that's the guy you think he is. It's that guy. So the air raid offense has done great for them. Jake Mullen has piled up tons of yards at quarterback. Problem is he's going to be out on Saturday. He injured his knee in the regular season finale against Mississippi College. I like their backup. Their backup has had some pretty good numbers this season, and he's had some experience. So I still like their chances this week. Trinity on the other side, Steve Moore has been there for forever, basically. They went to the Stag Bowl in 2002, had some runs of playoff success coming up to that, and then it's been a long time since they've been back in the playoffs. And in fact, they haven't won a postseason game since that 2002 national semifinal. So it's going to be a contrast of styles. Trinity hasn't allowed more than 16 points all year, and I think McMurray basically puts up about 16 points a quarter the way they've been going lately. So it'd be interesting to see how that one turns out.
Trinity's got a great coaching staff. I think they're doing good things. But yeah,
they do. Yeah, Jim Dawson is his first year as defensive coordinator, and they've really amped up the defense again this year.
Yeah. All right, jumping down to the Mountain Union bracket. That's a tough one to come out of also.
Yeah. Anytime you got Mountain Union, and on the other side too, both Wabash and North Central are pretty challenging. The team that would face Mountain Union if presuming Mount Union again takes care of business against Benedictine on Saturday. It'll be either Hampton, Sydney, or Center. And this is interesting because Center is the first team to get an at-large out of its conference, the Southern Collegiate Athletic Conference, and that conference is actually breaking up at the end of this year as well. So it's they'll be the last team to get an at-large bid out of this conference as well. Andy Fry's been there for a long time. They've been moderately successful. This is their first time that they've gotten as close to the playoffs as they did. They went 8-1 and only lost to Trinity in a pretty close game, and that was enough to get them in. They also beat Washington and Lee, which was a nice win for them. On the opposite side, the contrast is with Hampton Sydney. Marty Favrette's been there for all three of their recent playoff years, and then he was the offensive coordinator at Catholic University in D.C. for three of their playoff wins, all of their playoff trips, all of them 0-1. 3 1-and-outs at Hampton Sydney as well. So Marty Favrette in his 7th playoff game, still looking for his first win. They put up a ton of points. They've really struggled on defense of late. They've given up a ton of points as well.
Pat,
I see you smiling there.
You got a Catholic connection, don't you?
Yeah. Marty Favrette was the offensive coordinator when I went to Catholic. He's been a good friend of the site. He and Tom Clark, who was the head coach there, really kind of pushed us to do this sort of thing back in 1999 when we started the site. Yep.
That's great to hear. You guys have done a great job, D3 football, and I know everybody involved enjoys reading it daily. Thanks, Pat, for coming on. I would, hope Saturday doesn't run all day and all night for you, keeping the site rolling, because I know everybody's checking for scores. Thank you very much. This is a great job. I hope to have you back next week, and we can look at second round matchups.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.